Jedediah's ranch stretched as far as the eye could see, a sea of golden grass meeting the clear blue sky. It was a beautiful place, but lately, it felt awfully empty. It had been 3 years since Martha, his wife, had passed. He still missed her laugh, the way she'd hum while tending her garden, the warmth of her hand in his. He spent his days tending to his cattle, mending fences, and ensuring the ranch ran smoothly. It was honest work, work that kept his hands busy, but his heart often wandered back to the past. The evenings were the hardest. The silence in the house was deafening, broken only by the occasional creak of the old wooden floors or the howling of the wind outside. He'd often sit on the porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in vibrant colors, remembering evenings spent with Martha, sharing stories and dreams. He was a good man, a kind man, but loneliness had become his constant companion. He needed something, or someone, to fill the void in his life, but he didn't know what, or who, that could be. The annual charity auction was always a big event in Harmony Creek. Jedediah usually avoided it, finding the crowds and the noise overwhelming. But this year, Mrs. Henderson, a sweet old lady from the church, practically begged him to go. She said it would do him good to get out of the house and mingle with people. He couldn't refuse her earnest plea. So, with a sigh, he dusted off his best suit, the one he hadn't worn since Martha's funeral, and drove his pickup truck into town. The auction was held in the town square, which was decorated with colorful banners and twinkling lights. A stage had been set up, and people milled about, chatting and laughing. Jedediah felt out of place, a solitary figure in a sea of merriment. He nodded politely to those he recognized, but mostly kept to himself, standing near the back, observing the scene. The air was filled with the smell of popcorn and cotton candy, a stark contrast to the scent of hay and earth he was accustomed to on the ranch. He hoped he wouldn't have to stay too long. The auctioneer's voice boomed through the square, announcing the next item up for bid. Jedediah wasn't paying much attention until he heard the words, "And now, folks, we have a very special offering." Serafina. A young woman was led onto the stage. She was clearly pregnant, her belly round beneath a simple blue dress. Her eyes darted nervously around the crowd, filled with a mixture of fear and humiliation. Jedediah couldn't understand what was happening. He'd expected quilts and pies, not this. It was explained that Serafina was offering her services, cleaning, cooking, whatever the highest bidder required, to earn money for the town's struggling library. But the way she was presented, the leering glances from some of the men in the crowd, made Jedediah's stomach churn. Serafina looked so vulnerable, so out of place. He could see the desperation in her eyes, the silent plea for someone to help her escape this awful situation. She was clearly terrified. The bidding started low, but quickly escalated. Jedediah watched, his unease growing with each raise. He saw the way Serafina flinched at some of the bids, the way her hand instinctively went to her belly as if to protect her unborn child. Something inside him snapped. He couldn't stand to watch this charade any longer. Before he even realized what he was doing, Jedediah raised his hand. $50, he called out, his voice surprisingly firm. A hush fell over the crowd. Heads turned, eyes widened. Jedediah, the quiet, grieving rancher, bidding on this? It was completely out of character. He barely knew Serafina, but he couldn't bear the thought of her being subjected to the whims of someone who might not have her best interests at heart. He just wanted to help her, to offer her a safe haven. His impulsive act shocked everyone, including himself. He just hoped he hadn't made a terrible mistake. The bidding continued, but Jedediah was determined. He kept raising the price, his jaw set with a newfound resolve. Finally, the auctioneer's gavel slammed down. Sold. To Mr. Jedediah Johnson for $150. A collective gasp swept through the crowd. Jedediah had won. He felt a strange mix of triumph and trepidation. He had no idea what he was going to do now. Serafina was led towards him, her eyes wide with confusion. She looked at him with a mixture of gratitude and suspicion. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "But I don't understand." Jedediah offered her a gentle smile. "Don't worry," he said, trying to sound reassuring. "I just want to help you." But he could see the doubt in her eyes. She didn't know him, and he was essentially a stranger who had just bought her at an auction. He knew he had a lot of explaining to do, and a lot of trust to earn. This was going to be more complicated than he had anticipated. The drive back to the ranch was quiet. Serafina sat stiffly in the passenger seat of Jedediah's pickup, clutching a small bag containing the few belongings she had. Jedediah stole glances at her, trying to gauge her mood. She seemed lost in thought, her gaze fixed on the passing landscape. Finally, as they turned onto the long, dusty road leading to the ranch, Jedediah broke the silence. "Serafina," he began, his voice gentle, "I want you to know that I didn't buy you to own you. I just wanted to get you out of that situation." He paused, searching for the right words. "My wife, Martha, passed away a few years ago. Since then, this place has been awfully lonely. I just want to offer you a safe place to stay until you figure things out." He explained that she wouldn't be expected to work or do anything she didn't want to do. He simply wanted to provide her with shelter and support during her pregnancy. "Consider it a temporary arrangement," he concluded, hoping he sounded convincing. "A place to catch your breath." Days turned into weeks. At first, Serafina kept to herself, hesitant to intrude on Jedediah's life. She spent most of her time in the guest room, reading and resting. But Jedediah was patient and kind, always making sure she had everything she needed. He never pressured her, never asked for anything in return. Slowly, Serafina began to relax. She started venturing out of her room, offering to help with small tasks around the house. She'd tidy up the kitchen after meals, fold laundry, and sometimes even try her hand at baking. Jedediah never asked her to do these things, but he appreciated her efforts. He noticed the small smiles that flickered across her face when she felt useful. He even caught her humming softly to herself as she worked, a sound that filled the house with a warmth he hadn't felt in years. She started to trust him, realizing that he genuinely wanted to help. The fear in her eyes began to fade, replaced by a fragile sense of hope. The ranch, once a symbol of his loneliness, was slowly starting to feel like a home again. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, Jedediah gently asked Serafina about her past. Hesitantly, she began to share her story. She had grown up in a small town, dreaming of becoming a professional dancer. She'd poured her heart and soul into her training, earning scholarships and accolades. Then, she met a young man, a traveling musician, and fell in love. He promised her the world, but soon left her, pregnant and alone. Her dreams of dance seemed impossible now. She couldn't afford to continue her training, and the shame of being an unwed mother in her small town was overwhelming. She had come to Harmony Creek hoping to find a fresh start, but found herself trapped in circumstances beyond her control. Tears streamed down her face as she confessed her shattered dreams. She felt like a failure, like she had let everyone down, especially herself. Jedediah listened patiently, offering words of comfort and understanding. He knew what it was like to have your dreams altered by life's unexpected turns. In the days that followed, Jedediah couldn't shake Serafina's story from his mind. He noticed how she moved with a natural grace, even when simply walking across the room. He saw her talent, her passion, still flickering beneath the surface of her despair. One afternoon, he found her stretching in the barn, her movements hesitant and self-conscious. He watched her for a moment, admiring her form. "You know," he said, approaching her gently, "you shouldn't let your gift go to waste." Serafina looked away, embarrassed. "It's too late," she said softly. "I can't dance anymore." Jedediah shook his head. "It's never too late," he insisted. "Maybe you can't dance professionally right now, but that doesn't mean you have to stop altogether. Dance for yourself. Dance for the joy of it. He encouraged her to find a way to incorporate dance back into her life, even in a small way. He believed it would bring her joy and help her heal. He truly believed in her. Taking Jedediah's words to heart, Serafina cautiously approached Mrs. Henderson about teaching dance classes at the community center. To her surprise, Mrs. Henderson was thrilled with the idea. Soon, posters were up around town announcing the classes, and a small group of children signed up. At first, Serafina was nervous, unsure if she could still teach, especially while pregnant. But as soon as the music started and the children's eager faces lit up, her doubts vanished. She taught them basic ballet steps, simple routines, and most importantly, how to express themselves through movement. She saw their confidence grow with each class, their shyness melting away as they twirled and leaped across the floor. It wasn't just the children who were benefiting. Serafina found herself rediscovering her own joy in dance. Sharing her passion with others filled her with a sense of purpose she hadn't felt in a long time. She was no longer just a pregnant woman with shattered dreams, she was a teacher, an inspiration, a beacon of hope for these young dancers. One evening, a fierce storm rolled in, turning the sky a menacing shade of gray. The wind howled like a banshee, rattling the windows and shaking the very foundations of the ranch house. Rain lashed against the glass, blurring the world outside. Jedediah worked to secure the property, ensuring the animals were safe and the outbuildings were protected from the storm's fury. Suddenly, he heard Serafina cry out. He rushed inside to find her clutching her stomach, her face contorted in pain. "The baby," she gasped, I think it's coming." Jedediah's heart leaped into his throat. She was still weeks away from her due date. The storm raged outside, making it impossible to get her to the hospital. They were alone, and she was going into labor prematurely. He knew he had to stay calm and do everything he could to help her. This was happening now. The next few hours were a blur of pain, fear, and determination. Jedediah, guided by instructions from the radio and his own instincts, helped Serafina through the labor. He held her hand, wiped her brow, and offered words of encouragement, trying to remain calm despite the storm raging both inside and outside the house. He remembered snippets of advice from old medical books Martha used to read, praying he was doing everything right. Finally, with a final push, a tiny cry filled the room. A baby girl. Jedediah carefully cleaned the baby and wrapped her in a soft blanket. He handed her to Serafina, who held her close, tears streaming down her face. In that moment, a deep bond formed between Jedediah and Serafina. They had faced a terrifying ordeal together and emerged victorious. The shared experience had stripped away any remaining barriers, leaving them connected in a way neither of them could have ever imagined. They were a family, in the truest sense of the word. Even the storm seemed to quiet down, as if acknowledging the miracle that had just occurred. They named the baby Hope. It seemed fitting, a symbol of the new beginning they had all found. Serafina blossomed into motherhood. She was a natural, showering Hope with love and attention. Jedediah watched in awe as she sang lullabies, her voice soft and sweet, and danced gently with the baby in her arms. He, too, found himself captivated by Hope. He'd never imagined having a child, but he quickly fell in love with her tiny fingers, her gummy smiles, and her infectious giggles. He helped Serafina with nighttime feedings, changed diapers, and read her bedtime stories. The ranch, once echoing with silence, was now filled with the sounds of laughter and baby talk. Jedediah and Serafina worked together as a team, supporting each other and sharing the joys and challenges of parenthood. Serafina flourished with Jedediah's support, gaining confidence and strength as a mother. The ranch became a true home, filled with love, laughter, and hope. As the months passed, an undeniable attraction grew between Jedediah and Serafina. They found themselves drawn to each other's kindness, compassion, and shared love for Hope. They enjoyed spending time together, talking for hours about everything and nothing. Jedediah admired Serafina's strength and resilience, her ability to find joy even in the face of adversity. Serafina, in turn, appreciated Jedediah's gentle nature, his unwavering support, and the way he looked at her with such genuine care. But both were hesitant to acknowledge their feelings. Jedediah still carried the weight of Martha's memory, wondering if he was betraying her by moving on. Serafina feared she was taking advantage of Jedediah's generosity, that she was somehow obligated to him. They were also acutely aware of the unusual circumstances of their meeting, the auction, the age difference. Could they truly build a lasting relationship on such an unconventional foundation? The question lingered in the air between them, unspoken but ever-present. Their fragile peace was shattered one sunny afternoon when a sleek black car pulled up to the ranch. A woman stepped out, dressed in expensive clothes and radiating an air of wealth and authority. She introduced herself as Eleanor, the aunt of Hope's father. She had tracked Serafina down and, now that her nephew was unable to care for the child, she intended to take Hope back with her. Eleanor made it clear that she believed Serafina was unfit to raise Hope, citing her lack of financial stability and her questionable past. She spoke of providing Hope with the best possible education and opportunities, things Serafina could never offer. Serafina was devastated. The thought of losing Hope, the little girl who had brought so much joy into her life, was unbearable. She clung to Hope tightly, her heart pounding with fear and desperation. Jedediah stood protectively beside her, his eyes narrowed, a silent promise of support. This was a fight they couldn't afford to lose. Jedediah and Serafina knew they had a tough battle ahead of them. Eleanor had money, power, and influence. But they had something even stronger, love. They were a family, bound together by a shared history, a deep affection, and an unwavering commitment to Hope's well-being. They hired a lawyer, a kind woman named Ms. Peterson, who listened patiently to their story and assured them that they had a strong case. They gathered evidence of Serafina's dedication as a mother, her involvement in the community, and the loving and stable environment they had created for Hope on the ranch. Jedediah spoke to friends and neighbors, who testified to Serafina's character and her positive influence on the children she taught. They prepared themselves for a difficult legal battle, knowing that Eleanor would stop at nothing to get what she wanted. But they were determined to fight for Hope, to prove that love and family were more important than money and social standing. This fight would show everyone, including themselves, just how much they had become a family. The courtroom was tense. Eleanor sat stiffly, radiating confidence. Serafina trembled, clutching Jedediah's hand for support. Ms. Peterson presented their case, highlighting Serafina's transformation and the loving environment she had created for Hope. Neighbors testified to Serafina's kindness and her positive impact on the community. Then, it was Jedediah's turn to speak. He stood tall, his voice filled with emotion. He spoke of the night Hope was born, of the fear and the joy they had shared. He described Serafina's unwavering dedication to Hope, her selflessness, and her unconditional love. He told the judge about Serafina's dreams of dance and how she now shared that passion with the children of Harmony Creek. He argued that money couldn't buy love or a stable home, and that Hope belonged with Serafina, the woman who had nurtured her from the moment she was born. His words resonated with honesty and sincerity, moving many in the courtroom to tears. He spoke from the heart, defending the woman he had come to love and the little girl who had brought so much joy back into his life. The judge listened intently, her expression unreadable. After what felt like an eternity, she cleared her throat and spoke. In the matter of Hope's custody, she began, this court has carefully considered all the evidence presented. While Ms. Eleanor can undoubtedly provide Hope with material advantages, this court believes that the child's best interests are served by remaining with her mother, Serafina. A collective gasp filled the room. Serafina burst into tears of relief, clutching Hope tightly. Jedediah wrapped his arms around them both, a wave of gratitude washing over him. The judge continued, Serafina has demonstrated a clear commitment to Hope's well-being, providing her with a loving and stable home. The court also acknowledges the strong support system she has built within the community. Eleanor looked stunned, her face a mask of disbelief. Justice had prevailed. Love had won. Serafina would keep Hope. Back at the ranch, with Hope safely asleep, Jedediah and Serafina finally had a moment to themselves. The weight of the trial had lifted, replaced by a sense of profound relief and gratitude. They sat on the porch, watching the stars twinkle in the night sky. "Jedediah," Serafina began, her voice soft, "I don't know how to thank you for everything you've done for me and Hope. You saved us." Jedediah turned to her, his eyes filled with warmth. "Serafina," he said, "you and Hope saved me. This ranch was just an empty shell before you came along." He paused, taking a deep breath. "I know it's probably not the right time, and things are still complicated, but I think I'm falling in love with you." Serafina's eyes widened. "I think I'm falling in love with you too, Jedediah," she confessed, her voice trembling. They leaned in, their lips meeting in a tender kiss, a promise of a future filled with love, hope, and happiness. The auction felt like a lifetime ago. They were no longer just a lonely rancher and a pregnant dancer. They were a family, bound together by love and destiny. A year later, the ranch was transformed once again, this time for a joyous celebration. Jedediah and Serafina were getting married. The wedding was a heartwarming affair, filled with love, laughter, and the warmth of family and friends. Mrs. Henderson beamed with pride, watching the couple exchange vows under a flower-draped archway. Hope, now a happy and healthy toddler, served as the flower girl, scattering petals with delight. The children from Serafina's dance classes performed a special routine, their graceful movements a testament to her talent and dedication. Even Eleanor, humbled by the judge's decision and witnessing the genuine love between Jedediah and Serafina, sent a heartfelt gift. Jedediah looked at Serafina, his heart overflowing with love. He had found happiness again, in the most unexpected way. Serafina smiled back, knowing she had found her forever home. Their story was a testament to the unexpected blessings that life can bring, and the power of love to heal, transform, and create a family where you least expect it. It was a beautiful reminder that everyone deserves a second chance at happiness.